It was just another humid Friday night in Miami Beach. The neon lights shimmered on the rain-slicked sidewalks, and the bass from a dozen beachside clubs pulsed like a collective heartbeat. Inside Lucifer Lounge, one of the trendiest late-night bars on Ocean Drive, 29-year-old bartender Damon Green was finishing up his shift, wiping down the counters, nodding politely to drunk tourists, and counting the tips he knew he'd blow on sneakers and late-night tacos. Damon wasn't looking for anything special that night. He was tired, still wearing the same black V-neck that clung to his sweat from 8 straight hours of mixing overpriced cocktails. But just as he was about to turn off the taps, she walked in. She wasn't like the regular party girls. No giggling, no girlfriends trailing behind. She came alone, dressed in a deep red silk dress that draped over her body like it was made for her. Long black hair fell past her shoulders, perfectly straight, and her eyes, wide, dark, and still, scanned the room like she was looking for something. Or someone. Her name, she said in a low, smoky voice, was Roxanne. They talked for maybe 5 minutes. Not the usual flirting. She asked weirdly specific things. Do you live alone? Do you believe in soul ties? What's the darkest thing you've ever done? Damon laughed it off, chalking it up to some kinky role-play thing. She didn't smile. She just watched him, but there was something about her. Something magnetic. When the bar closed at 2 a.m., she followed him out without needing an invite. No Uber. No small talk. They walked in silence through the muggy air back to his studio apartment 2 blocks away. Damon would later say he couldn't remember if she even blinked the whole time. Inside his apartment, things moved fast. She undressed without a word, the red dress pooling at her feet like blood on tile. Her skin was cool to the touch, unnervingly cool, Damon thought at the time, but he blamed the air conditioner. She climbed into his bed, still silent, still staring. They had sex. Once. Then again. And again. Something about her energy was feral, almost mechanical, like she was acting out a script, not participating. Her eyes barely closed, and she never made a sound. No moan, no laugh, not even a breathless whisper. By 5 a.m., Damon was spent, lying in bed next to her, exhausted but strangely uneasy. Roxanne lay next to him, eyes open, staring at the ceiling like it held secrets. When he asked if she wanted water, she didn't answer, just turned her head and smiled. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. He woke up alone. It was 10:42 a.m. Sunlight leaked through the blinds. Roxanne was gone. No text, no number, nothing but a faint perfume still lingering in the air. A sharp floral scent with something rotten underneath. Damon stumbled into the bathroom, still groggy, still fogged from whatever weird fog she'd wrapped him the night before. He began cleaning up, tossing used condoms into the trash. That's when he saw it. The third condom, the one they'd used sometime around 4 a.m., was moving. He leaned in, and that's when he saw them. Maggots. Tiny, white, writhing worms squirming around inside the latex. Damon dropped it with a scream, stumbling back so hard he knocked over the laundry basket. He gagged, nearly threw up in the sink. His brain couldn't process it. Was it something he ate? A trick of the light? A prank? No. He reached for the trash can again, picked it up with trembling hands, and examined the condom more closely. The maggots were real. Crawling, squirming, alive. That's when the smell hit him. Not the perfume anymore. Something far worse. Faint but distinct. The scent of death. He called 911. He didn't even know what to say. There were maggots in the condom, he told the dispatcher. She was just here. We had sex all night. Now she's gone. The dispatcher tried to get him to slow down, asked if there was a medical emergency. Damon gave them her name, Roxanne, and the address she'd scribbled on a napkin from the bar. The address she claimed was hers. Police arrived within the hour. Damon, shirtless, pale and still shaking, let them in. He repeated the story. The officers exchanged glances. At first, they thought it was just drugs, maybe a bad trip. Miami was full of them. But when they ran the address, everything changed. The address led to a crumbling townhouse on the edge of Wynwood. One officer went to check it out while the other stayed with Damon. 20 minutes later, the cop radioed back. There was a body. Female, mid to late 20s, decomposing, and wearing a red silk dress. The sun beat down mercilessly on the crumbling townhouse as yellow police tape flapped lazily in the warm Miami breeze. Neighbors peered from behind curtains, whispering theories and taking grainy cell phone footage as detectives, coroners, and forensic techs moved in and out of the building. Inside, the air was thick, not just with the stench of decay, but with something heavier. Dread. She was lying on a stained mattress on the second floor, her arms folded neatly across her chest as if someone had posed her. Her long black hair fanned out across a dirty white pillow, stiffened by fluids and time. She was barefoot, her red silk dress crumpled and clinging to her skin in places like it had melted into her body. Flies buzzed lazily near the open window. Detective Loren Vasquez, a 50-year-old veteran with a stomach like steel, took one look and knew this wasn't a suicide or overdose. This was deliberate, she muttered to her partner. She's been dead at least 3 days. Yet Damon Green swore, trembling, crying, that he had sex with this exact woman just hours ago. Back at the station, Damon sat in an interrogation room, a thin film of sweat coating his forehead. His hands trembled as he clutched a styrofoam cup of water. Detective Vasquez entered quietly, dropping a folder on the table and taking a seat across from him. You said her name was Roxanne? He nodded. That's what she told me. You sure it was her? The woman in the red dress. I'm not crazy, Damon stammered. We were together all night. She was warm. She talked. She moved. She looked at me. Vasquez slid a photo across the table. This is her face. This photo was taken 5 years ago when she was arrested for a DUI. Her name's Roxanne Velez, age 27. Does this look like the woman you slept with last night? Damon stared at the photo, his face going pale. Yes, that's her. Mr. Green, Vasquez said, her voice lowering, we found Roxanne's body this morning, and she's been dead for at least 72 hours. Forensics confirmed it. The body in the townhouse was Roxanne Velez. No signs of a break-in. No defensive wounds. But under her fingernails, they found traces of formalin, a chemical used in body preservation. In the corner of the room was a portable refrigerator unit rigged from a meat freezer plugged into the wall. Inside, investigators found syringes, gloves, and an old biology textbook with highlighted passages on temporary corpse preservation. The question now wasn't just who killed Roxanne, but who had brought her body back to life for one last night. Meanwhile, across town, a woman stood in front of a cracked mirror. Her long black hair was brushed smooth. Her lips painted a dark, almost bloody shade. Her eyes? Cold, focused. She stepped back and slipped on a red silk dress, identical to the one worn by Roxanne, the one pulled from her decomposing body that very morning. It fit her perfectly, almost like it had been made for her. She tilted her head and smiled at her reflection. Tonight, she whispered, someone else will know what she felt. Detective Vasquez was stuck. The timeline didn't make sense. The autopsy put time of death somewhere 3.5 days prior. That would mean Roxanne was already dead the night Damon claimed to be with her. But Damon's story was too detailed, too vivid, not the ravings of a junkie or a liar. The physical evidence, especially the condom full of live maggots, was disturbingly real. That's when they received a call from a local mortuary technician. He had seen the news reports the sketch of Roxanne, and recognized her. Not from her death, but from 2 nights ago when she walked into his supply store asking for preservative agents and syringes. She claimed she was an artist working on a body horror photo shoot. Vasquez asked if she had ID. The technician shook his head. No, but she said her name was Rachel. Back at the precinct, the team dug into Roxanne's background. And there it was. A twin, Rachel Velez. Same age, same face, but a very different history. Rachel had been institutionalized for several years in her early 20s. Diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, coupled with delusional identity confusion. Records showed she often claimed to be her sister, insisting Roxanne had stolen her life. She had disappeared 2 years ago after being released from outpatient care. No known address, no job history, no paper trail. Until now, Damon was stunned. She had a sister? A twin? Vasquez nodded grimly. And we believe that's who you spend the night with. He blinked, struggling to process. But how would she even? She likely killed Roxanne, kept her body cold, used makeup, chemicals, her own memory of her sister's mannerisms to mimic her perfectly. Then she went out, looking for someone. For you. But why? Vasquez sighed. We're still figuring that out. But deep down, she already had a theory. Rachel didn't want to just be her sister. She wanted to take her place. Completely. Intimately. Physically. And Damon? He was just collateral. That night, a 911 call came in from a man screaming in panic. He said he'd met a woman at a bar, brought her home, and now she was gone. But the sheets on his bed were stained with something foul-smelling. The red dress she wore had been left behind, soaked in blood. He never got her name, but he remembered the last thing she said before slipping out the door. Do you believe in soul ties? 3 days after Roxanne Velez's body was discovered, Rachel had vanished back into the shadows. The police had her name, her psychiatric history, and a rough idea of what she looked like. Identical to her sister, only thinner, more angular, like someone whose soul had been eroded by time. But Rachel was a ghost. No driver's license, no phone, no digital footprint, and no motive that made sense, at least not yet. Detective Vasquez sat alone at her desk, staring at 2 mugshots side by side. Roxanne and Rachel. Same eyes, same bone structure, but different energy. Roxanne had a smirk, confident, almost flirtatious. Rachel looked hollow, as if she was looking through the camera and seeing someone else entirely, or seeing no one at all. The department brought in Dr. Amelia Kerr, a forensic psychologist who specialized in identity disorders. After reviewing Rachel's mental health files, she offered a chilling insight. Rachel had what's called mirrored delusional integration. She believed that Roxanne wasn't her sister, but a version of herself in another life who had stolen the good path. In Rachel's mind, by killing Roxanne and assuming her role, she wasn't committing murder. She was correcting a universal imbalance. Vasquez leaned forward. So, she really believed she was Roxanne? Dr. Kerr nodded slowly. And the most dangerous part? She could convince you too. The disorder makes her exceptionally skilled at mimicking, adapting, like a social chameleon. That's why Mr. Green never questioned her. For Rachel, identity isn't fixed. It's transferable. Meanwhile, Damon Green was spiraling. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, or them. The woman in red with eyes like obsidian. The eerie silence during sex. The maggots in the condom. The fact that the body they pulled from that townhouse was already 3 days dead. Was he drugged? Was he hallucinating? Or had he really made love to a woman wearing the skin of her dead sister? Reporters camped outside his apartment. Online trolls called him a necrophile. Conspiracy theorists flooded Reddit with threads like, did Rachel Velez practice Haitian death rituals? And Miami's real-life skinwalker? But the worst part was the guilt. He couldn't shake the thought. What if I had said no? Would Roxanne still be alive? That same week, a third man came forward. A 37-year-old dentist named Eric Malloy, living in Coral Gables, claimed he had met a woman named Roxanne just 2 nights before the body was discovered. She had approached him in a bookstore, asked about a Kafka novel, and within an hour they were drinking wine at his place. She was intense, Eric said, beautiful but cold. The whole time, she kept asking me about identity. Like, do you ever wish you could be someone else? And then she said, I used to be dead, but I fixed it. I thought she was being poetic. Now I'm not so sure. Eric said they didn't sleep together, but when she left, she had taken something, a framed photo of his ex-girlfriend. The next break came from a routine foot patrol. A rookie officer spotted a woman sleeping in the back of an abandoned van behind an old print shop. When he knocked, the woman bolted barefoot, red silk dress fluttering, hair wild. She ran through alleyways like she'd done it 100 times. She disappeared before backup arrived, but she left behind a disturbing treasure trove. Inside the van were 3 wigs, all styled to match Roxanne's look. A small vanity mirror stained with dried makeup, a plastic container of embalming fluid, several used condoms, all sealed in individual plastic bags, labeled with names, dates, and locations. And worst of all, a journal. Detective Vasquez didn't sleep that night. She stayed at the precinct reading every page of Rachel's handwriting. The journal wasn't just thoughts, it was a manual. Instructions. Rituals. A log of every time she pretended to be Roxanne. Some entries read like seduction blueprints. Others were near poetic. They look at me, and they see her. They kiss me, and they taste her. But inside I rot, because I'm real, and she was not. She wrote about Damon. He saw me, really saw me. For a moment, I felt alive again. Not Hermie, but then I saw the maggots. The lie was breaking, so I left. Then, in one of the last entries, dated 2 nights before Roxanne's body was found, Rachel wrote, "The old flesh is failing. I need a new one, a new shell. I've already chosen her. She smiled at me in the salon. She thinks I'm normal. She'll be perfect." The new shell was found 3 days later. A 25-year-old salon receptionist named Melanie Ruiz was reported missing by her roommate. Her body was discovered inside a bathtub filled with bleach and ice, exactly like Roxanne. Hair shaved off, clothing missing, teeth pulled. Detectives arrived too late. Rachel was already gone, but this time she had left something behind. A message written on the mirror in red lipstick. Beauty is who believes it. Public panic spread quickly. Miami media dubbed her the Skin Twin. Some believe she was dead. Others claim to have seen her hitchhiking near Hialeah or walking barefoot near a cemetery in Homestead. But no confirmed sightings followed. She had disappeared again, like a reflection when the light changes. Vasquez stood in front of the murder board weeks later, exhausted and furious. For victims, 2 dead, 2 violated, 1 walking time bomb, and no arrest. Who is she now? Her partner asked. Vasquez looked at the blown-up photo of Roxanne on the board, then slowly peeled it down. Underneath was a surveillance image from a women's clinic taken just yesterday. A woman in oversized sunglasses, red lipstick, and a wide-brimmed hat sat filling out intake forms. Her name on the clipboard, Sierra Valdez. But Vasquez knew that jawline, that stillness, that stare. Rachel Velez had returned. The clinic's front desk staff remembered her clearly. A woman in her late 20s. Beautiful in that artificial, too symmetrical way, like a wax figure come to life. She wore large sunglasses, a scarf over her head despite the 90-degree heat, and red lipstick so precisely drawn it looked airbrushed. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. She called herself Sierra Valdez. But Detective Vasquez knew better. The intake form listed her concerns: facial reconstruction due to scarring from an accident. She requested jaw contouring, nasal narrowing, and something unusual, cheekbone reduction, to appear less recognizable in photos. The receptionist thought it was strange, but not illegal, and so Sierra was given a consult appointment, set for 3 days later. But she never showed. Instead, a nurse found an exam room ransacked, drawers open, syringes and anesthetics missing. On the mirror, once again, that same red lipstick. The face is just a mask. The city was on edge. News channels ran headlines like, "Miami's real-life Hannibal Lecter, but prettier. She steals faces to hide in plain sight." Rachel Velez, copycat killer or lost soul? Women stopped walking alone at night. Cosmetic clinics hired security. And men, especially the ones who had been with her, started coming forward. 6 more. All described a similar experience. A magnetic woman in red, emotionally distant, but physically intense. She would ask the same chilling questions. Do you believe in soul ties? Or what would you look like if no one knew you? Then she'd vanish. Each time, leaving behind something strange. An earring, a comb, a used napkin with lipstick prints. Small trophies. Psychological footprints. She wasn't just impersonating faces. She was collecting identities. Back in the station, Vasquez stared at the growing web on the murder board. Red string tied together photos, dates, locations. Every thread led to one point: Rachel Velez, or rather, whoever she was becoming next. They needed a way to bait her. But she was smart. She didn't use social media. She paid in cash. She didn't stay in motels or shelters. She stayed inside other people's lives, slipped into them like costumes, then discarded them when they didn't fit. So Vasquez did something risky. She created a fake identity. Lucia Martinez, a mid-30s facial surgeon, known for working quietly with clients who wanted to disappear. A woman with no scruples. Cash only. Discreet. Then she had her undercover team set up a website. 1 page, 1 phone number, 1 hook. You don't need to run. You just need a new face. The voicemail came 72 hours later. A soft voice. Measured. Controlled. "Hi, I saw your website. I'm interested in altering myself. Completely. I'm tired of people seeing someone I'm not. I don't want to be recognized ever again. Can you help me disappear?" There was a pause. Then, "My name is Alessa." Vasquez's team tracked the call to a burner phone purchased at a gas station near the Broward County line. Surveillance footage showed her, or someone like her, buying it while wearing a hoodie and surgical mask. They responded. Set the bait. Yes, the fake surgeon texted. "Come in tomorrow. Bring your cash." Rachel responded with a single word. "Ready." The next day, the team staged a backroom at a defunct clinic in North Miami. Cameras hidden in light fixtures. Syringe kits swapped for rubber decoys. Officers waiting in an adjacent room. They had medics on standby. And Vasquez herself, behind the mask of Lucia, sitting in a lab coat with a clipboard. At exactly 11:03 a.m., she walked in. Even Vasquez flinched. She looked perfect, immaculate, like a high-end Instagram filter. Long black wig parted down the middle. Soft contour makeup, but there was no warmth, no humanity, just calculation. "Alessa," she said, extending her hand, "but I've had many names." She sat down, crossed her legs, studied Vasquez like prey studying its predator. "I don't want a consultation," she whispered. "I want erasure." Vasquez played along. "And what are we erasing?" She leaned in. Rachel Velez. For half a second, the room went still. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Then Rachel smiled. "But that's not who I am anymore." Just as Vasquez gave the code phrase, "Let's numb the past first," SWAT officers burst in. Rachel didn't resist. She closed her eyes, whispered something no one could hear, then smiled again, not in fear, but in triumph, like she'd wanted to be caught. In custody, Rachel refused to answer questions for days. She ate little, slept less, drew on the walls of her cell with toothpaste and her own blood. Faces, dozens of them, all different, all hers. Only when Dr. Amelia Kerr returned did she finally speak. "I was never just Rachel," she said calmly. "I was her. Then I was Sierra, then Lucia, then Alessa. I wore them, like dresses. But you can't wear the same one forever, can you?" Dr. Kerr asked if she felt regret. Rachel blinked. "Regret?" she laughed. "No, just fatigue. I'm tired of being someone." Then she looked up, dead into the camera, and asked, "Can you give me a new one?" The trial was scheduled for the following spring. Psychiatrists debated if she was fit to stand. Prosecutors wanted life without parole. But the nation, captivated by her story, was divided. Some saw her as a predator, a manipulative psychopath who used beauty as a weapon. Others saw her as a tragic product of mental illness, trauma, and a society obsessed with image and identity. Reddit threads exploded. True crime podcasts spiraled. Netflix called Vasquez for film rights. But one fact remained. 2 women were dead. 9 others were violated. And Rachel Velez, or whoever she was now, had stolen more than just faces. She had stolen lives. It was standing room only on the first day of the state of Florida versus Rachel Velez. The courtroom buzzed like a beehive, reporters scribbling, camera lenses clicking, jurors glancing nervously at the defendant. Rachel sat still at the defense table, dressed in a pale beige blouse, hair tied back in a loose braid. No makeup, no accessories. For the first time since her arrest, she looked plain, deliberately so, as if daring the world to ask, "Who do you see now?" The prosecution's case was airtight. 2 confirmed murders. Her sister Roxanne Velez and Melanie Ruiz, the salon worker whose body was found chemically preserved and partially disfigured. 9 other men came forward with DNA evidence linking Rachel to sexual acts committed under assumed identities. 5 witnesses, nurses, bartenders, neighbors, testified to seeing Rachel impersonating other women in the weeks leading up to her arrest. The assistant district attorney, Charles Linford, opened strong. Rachel Velez is not just a murderer. She is a manipulator who used identity like a scalpel, cutting into people's lives, wearing their faces, violating their bodies, and discarding them like old clothing. He pointed to the jury. This trial isn't about mental illness. It's about intent, about a woman who planned, plotted, and prayed, and now wants to hide behind the excuse of confusion. But the defense had a different strategy and a different story. Led by famed mental health attorney Cassandra Doyle, the defense painted Rachel as a deeply disturbed woman failed by every system meant to protect her. They brought in expert witnesses, psychiatrists, former caseworkers, trauma specialists. Dr. Amelia Kerr testified again, this time under oath. Rachel did not fake her illness. She is suffering from extreme form of dissociative identity disorder, layered with untreated psychosis and identity delusion brought on by early abuse. The defense showed old journals from Rachel's teenage years, entries that spoke of confusion, torment, obsession with mirrors, fear of her reflection. They played a chilling video from 2014, recorded during one of her psychiatric holds, where Rachel sobbed into the camera. "I don't know who I am. I just want to be someone that people love. I'll be her. I'll be anyone. Just don't let me disappear." The courtroom went silent. Outside, the nation was anything but quiet. Talk shows debated daily. Twitter became a battlefield. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Rachel the Monster. Hashtag Let Her Burn. Hashtag she needs help, not prison. Hashtag we all wear masks. Some called her a sociopath, a cold, calculating killer. Others saw her as a modern-day Frankenstein, made monstrous by trauma, rejection, and society's obsession with beauty. One viral tweet read, "If Rachel Velez had been a man, she'd be in prison already. If she'd been ugly, we wouldn't care. But because she was beautiful and broken, we stare." Even the jurors admitted later they felt emotionally torn, caught between horror and pity. But no moment shook the courtroom or the nation like Rachel's testimony. After weeks of silence, she finally agreed to speak. She walked to the stand in plain gray prison attire. No shackles, hands folded gently. Doyle asked her softly, "Rachel, do you know who you are today?" Rachel looked around the courtroom. Her voice was calm, measured. "Today, I'm Rachel. Yesterday, I think I was Sierra. Before that, maybe Melanie. I don't remember anymore. Sometimes I dream of Roxanne and wake up crying because I am her. Or was. Or maybe I killed her so I could live." She turned to the jury. "I don't want to hurt people. I just don't know how to be." A juror wept. In the gallery, a mother clutched her daughter tighter. One man stood and shouted, "Liar," before being removed by bailiffs. The closing arguments were a clash of worlds. The prosecution demanded life without parole, arguing Rachel knew exactly what she was doing, that she planned and executed every manipulation with the precision of a surgeon. Mental illness is not a license to kill. We cannot allow empathy to cloud justice. The defense pleaded for psychiatric treatment in a secure hospital. She doesn't need a cell. She needs help. Locking her away won't fix her, and it won't bring Roxanne or Melanie back. But it will send a message that our justice system still has a soul. Then the jury deliberated. For 3 days. The verdict? Guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Not guilty by reason of insanity on charges of sexual assault and identity theft. Rachel Velez was sentenced to confinement in a maximum security psychiatric hospital for the criminally insane under indefinite supervision, to be reevaluated every 5 years for possible transfer or release. The public reaction was immediate and polarizing. Some saw it as justice, others as cowardice. Protests erupted outside the hospital within 24 hours, signs reading, "No freedom for face thieves. Rip Roxanne." Mental illness is not equal to excuse. But a quieter, deeper question began surfacing in newsrooms, classrooms, and social media threads. How many of us are wearing masks too? Rachel's crimes had forced America to confront its obsession with identity, beauty, transformation, and validation. She wasn't just a killer. She was a mirror, reflecting the darkest corners of what people do to be seen, to be loved, to feel real. In her final courtroom statement, before being transferred, Rachel asked for a mirror. They gave her one, plastic, shatterproof. She looked at herself for a long time, then whispered, "I wonder who I'll be tomorrow." St. Thaddeus Psychiatric Hospital for the criminally insane wasn't the kind of place they showed in movies. No white hallways, no friendly nurses with clipboards. It was brutalist concrete, security cameras in every corner, doors that only opened with keypads and retinal scans. This was where the state sent the ones too dangerous for prison, but too broken for the chair. And in the most secure wing, behind 2 layers of steel and glass, was room 311. The nameplate outside didn't say Rachel Velez. It said Jane Doe 72A, because even now, even inside this fortress, Rachel refused to be anyone. Or rather, she insisted on being everyone. The staff called it the mirror room. It wasn't supposed to be, but over time, they noticed something strange. Rachel only responded when speaking directly to her own reflection. She ignored doctors. She tuned out group sessions. but place her in a chair with a handheld mirror or in front of the polished steel sink in her cell, and she would begin speaking, not to herself, to others. Nurse Cindy Alvarez was the first to document it. Patient appears lucid only when engaged in mirror-directed dialogue, she wrote. Identifies herself alternately as Roxanne, Sierra, Alessa, and one unknown entity named the real one. Cindy was disturbed by the conversations. She'd stand outside the door, clipboard in hand, listening to Rachel whisper in shifting tones. Sierra liked red lipstick, but Roxanne liked smiles. I broke her teeth so she'd stop. Melanie was too soft. I needed stronger skin. They were all trying to leave me, so I left them first. And then, sometimes, a soft, almost childlike voice. Am I pretty now? Dr. Edwin Lamar, chief psychiatrist, had treated over 100 patients with dissociative disorders, but none like Rachel. She's not just disassociated. She's fractured, like a mirror someone dropped and tried to tape back together. You can still see the face, but the cracks run deep. What troubled him most wasn't the identity confusion. It was the planning. One day, during a session, he left a small whiteboard in the room, a standard tool for nonverbal patients. Rachel ignored it at first, but when he returned the next morning, a message was scrawled across it in perfect handwriting. The new one is almost ready. She's blonde this time. 2 weeks later, another patient in the facility, a 24-year-old named Clara Dent, in for arson and delusions, attempted suicide. When nurses found her, she was in the bathroom of the recreation wing, head shaved, red lipstick smeared across her mouth, whispering, I want to be her. I want to be the pretty one. In her pillowcase, they found a mirror cracked, and underneath her bed, tucked in a notebook, were letters addressed to Rachel. Rachel had never left her cell. No physical contact with other patients. No group time. No visitation. And yet somehow, her influence had spread. An internal review was launched. Security footage was combed through frame by frame. What they found chilled them. During a cleaning rotation, one of the janitorial staff, a 45-year-old woman named Elena Ruiz, had taken an abnormal amount of time in Rachel's wing. For several days in a row, she'd linger near room 311. On day 6, she was caught on video slipping a lipstick tube under the door. Elena was arrested and questioned. She confessed quickly, trembling, crying. She talked to me, not with words, with her eyes. Every time I saw her reflection, I felt like I knew her, like she understood what it's like to be invisible. She paused, then whispered. She said I could be someone new, that I didn't have to stay me. Rachel was placed on full sensory lockdown. No mirrors, no reflective surfaces, no contact, not even with staff unless through audio. But she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She smiled, then turned to the blank wall in her cell and began speaking to it like it still held a reflection. That's okay. I already remember your face. In the silence of room 311, where time felt suspended and even shadows refused to move, Rachel Velez spoke, not with her mouth, but through memory, through fracture. She saw a little girl standing in front of a cracked hallway mirror, a girl with large eyes and tangled hair, pressing her palms against the glass like it might open into another world. On the other side, Roxanne, always smiling, always loved. Roxanne was the favorite. Even as a child, she moved like a song. Rachel remembered how their mother would braid Roxanne's hair first, cooing compliments, while Rachel sat quietly, gripping her own scalp just to feel something. She used to practice smiling for hours. In the bathroom, with the door locked, holding her face still, then curling the corners of her mouth slowly, praying it would look effortless. Roxanne's smile danced. Rachel's looked wrong, forced, like a mask that didn't fit. One day, when she was 10, she stole Roxanne's diary. Not to read it, but to copy it, line by line, word for word. She even signed it Roxanne at the end, then hid it under her mattress and whispered into it like a spell. At 13, she started signing school papers with the wrong name, just to see if anyone noticed. No one did. That's when it began, the split. The idea that maybe, just maybe, identity was a matter of will, of commitment. That if she memorized Roxanne hard enough, her tone, her walk, her way of chewing, she could overwrite herself. Not become better, just become visible. She remembered one afternoon at 16, standing in the hallway as Roxanne stormed out of the house in a red sundress. Rachel waited until the door slammed, then snuck into her sister's room, slipped into the same dress, and twirled in front of the mirror. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just stared, and for the first time, the reflection didn't flinch. That night, she cut her own hair. At 19, during her first institutional hold, the doctors asked her name. She said Roxanne. They wrote delusional. They never asked why, but she knew why. Because being Rachel meant loneliness, rejection, silence. Being Roxanne meant being wanted, touched, kissed. It meant someone saw you when you entered a room. And so, she learned the trick. Hold eye contact just long enough. Smile with only one side of your mouth. Tilt your chin like you're hiding something. People project what they want to see. You just have to reflect it back. In room 311, her knees pressed into the cold floor, Rachel drew invisible lines with her finger, tracing faces no one else could see. Each line a memory, each curve a name. Roxanne, Sierra, Melanie, Alessa, the real one. That last one, she didn't know where it came from. Maybe it was always there, beneath the skin, beneath the mimicry, watching her from behind her own eyes. Sometimes, when the room was dark enough, Rachel would turn her head slowly and catch it, a shadow in the polished metal of her food tray. Smiling. Not at her. Through her. The psychiatrist called her fractured. They didn't understand. She wasn't broken. She was assembled, like a mosaic of other people's dreams. A mirror made of borrowed faces. A reflection that learned to survive by being seen. She stood up slowly, the joints in her knees cracking like ice, shifting. She walked to the blank wall, placed both hands on the concrete, and whispered, "As long as someone's watching, I will always reflect." And in the stillness, in the heartbeat between words, she imagined she heard it. Not her own voice, but the smile behind the glass. The hospital brought in Dr. Amelia Kerr for a second evaluation. She entered room 311 wearing no jewelry, no makeup, no electronics. Rachel sat on the floor, barefoot, drawing on her arm with a crayon. She looked up, smiled. "You're the one who always wanted to fix me." Amelia sat down quietly. "Rachel, do you know where you are?" Rachel blinked. "No," then added, "But I know who you are." Dr. Kerr leaned forward. "And who's that?" Rachel tilted her head. "You're the next one." That night, Dr. Kerr drove home in silence. She didn't turn on music, didn't call anyone. She went to her bedroom, opened her vanity drawer, and took out an old lipstick she hadn't worn in years, deep red. She stared at herself in the mirror for a long time, then whispered, "Am I pretty now?" Inside room 311, Rachel stared into the polished surface of her steel food tray. It wasn't glass, but it was enough, and in it, her reflection smiled, then winked. 2 months after Rachel Velez was locked into full sensory isolation at St. Thaddeus Psychiatric Hospital, the world outside had begun to forget. The headlines faded. The hashtag stopped trending. New scandals took over. But something was spreading, quietly, invisibly, like a virus, and no one saw it coming until it was far too late. It began in small, eerie ways. A barista in Tampa suddenly shaved her head in the middle of a shift, smearing lipstick across her teeth while whispering, "They only notice me when I'm her." A college student in Jacksonville attacked her roommate after becoming convinced they had stolen her reflection. A substitute teacher in Fort Lauderdale was found muttering in the faculty bathroom mirror, "You're not the real me." She is. She always has been. Each incident made local news, chalked up to drug use, untreated schizophrenia, psychotic breaks. But behind the scenes, one detective started connecting the dots. Detective Loren Vasquez. Vasquez never really moved on. She still kept the Rachel board pinned to the wall of her home office, even though the case was closed. She told her captain it was over, but her gut said otherwise. Something about Rachel didn't feel contained. Not fully, not spiritually, not psychologically, not existentially. So when she started seeing cases pop up, people with no prior mental illness suddenly displaying Rachel-like behaviors, she started digging. And what she found terrified her. Every person involved in the strange outbursts had one thing in common. They had recently viewed media related to the Rachel Velez case. A YouTube video recap of the trial. A podcast titled Faces, The True Story of the Skin Twin. A local museum exhibit on women who kill, featuring a blurred image of Rachel's eyes. Even a leaked surveillance video of Rachel speaking to herself in the mirror, reposted on TikTok and racking up 4.6 million views. Each subject had been exposed to her image, her voice, her essence. Vasquez presented her theory at an internal meeting. The response? Laughter. Disbelief. "Are you suggesting Rachel is some kind of mimetic virus?" her captain asked, half joking. Like a cursed reflection, Vasquez didn't laugh, because she had just seen one of her own officers, a 22-year-old rookie, sitting in the locker room, tracing his face with a dry erase marker, whispering, "I need to be sharper." Symmetrical, pretty like her. At the hospital, Dr. Amelia Kerr returned for another evaluation. Her hands shook as she signed in. She hadn't spoken publicly since her last visit. Since the night, she found herself staring too long into her own mirror, applying lipstick she hadn't touched in years. This time, she brought no makeup, no jewelry, no mirrored surfaces. Inside room 311, Rachel was waiting, seated cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, humming something melodic. Dr. Kerr spoke softly. "Rachel, do you know what's happening outside?" Rachel opened one eye, smiled faintly. "I planted seeds." She lifted her hand and pointed at the wall where no one had drawn anything. But under blacklight, the nurses later found a message smeared in saliva. "Every mirror remembers me." 3 nights later, a prison guard at the hospital walked into the rec room alone, dragged a full-length mirror from storage, and smashed his own face into it. Over and over. When they pulled him off the floor, he was laughing. "She's inside now," he whispered through broken teeth. The state ordered Rachel to be sedated indefinitely. She was no longer allowed verbal communication. Feeding tubes replaced meals. She was muzzled, restrained, moved to a sub-basement with 0 reflective surfaces. The goal: complete sensory erasure. Silence. Darkness. Non-being. And yet, the patients kept whispering her name. The orderlies began requesting transfers. 2 nurses filed for early retirement, citing persistent nightmares involving face swapping. Rachel Velez had become more than a killer. She had become a myth, a meme of identity, a reflection that would not die. They called it the mirror sickness. At first, it was just Reddit threads and TikTok conspiracies, people claiming they saw her in reflections that didn't match their movements, or whispering voices in the mirror, saying their names in a different voice. The kind of stories you scroll past at 3 a.m. and laugh nervously about. Then came the incidents. In Tampa, a 28-year-old barista named Leona stripped off her apron mid-shift, smeared lipstick across her face and teeth, and walked into traffic chanting, "Only pretty ones survive." In Jacksonville, a sophomore college student attacked her roommate with a broken compact mirror, screaming, "You took my reflection, give it back." In Fort Lauderdale, a substitute teacher was found locked in the faculty restroom, scratching "She lives in the glass" into the tile grout with her own fingernails. When questioned, she only muttered, "I saw her. I saw her blink from the wrong side." Each case was ruled a psychotic break. No connections made, until Vasquez started digging. She never truly let the case go. Even in retirement, her Rachel wall remained in her spare room. Photos, names, dates, printouts of forum posts, and hundreds of red strings like veins in a growing organism. And then she saw it. The thread. Each new victim, no matter where they were, had viewed some form of media related to the Rachel Velez case within 10 days of their incident. A podcast recap, a leaked trial video, a TikTok edit of top 10 chilling female killers, where Rachel ranked number 4. A YouTube short showing her interrogation mirror moment, with 6.3 million views and a caption, "This smile lives rent-free in my nightmare's flushed face." Even a traveling art exhibit titled "Women Who Kill" featured a blurred still from Rachel's mugshot, mirrored 3 times for artistic effect. Every outburst, every breakdown, every whispered name in the dark, it all traced back to her image. Her voice, her reflection. Vasquez presented the theory to a closed group of former colleagues. "Rachel isn't just in the hospital," she said, pointing to a grainy still of a girl staring into her phone camera. "She's out here, infecting minds, through pixels, through mirrors, through memory." The room fell silent. "Are you saying," a retired profiler asked slowly, "that Rachel's consciousness is spreading like a virus?" Vasquez didn't answer. She didn't have to. That same week, a young influencer named Amber Locke, known for makeup tutorials and aesthetic transformation content, began a live stream series titled Becoming Her, the Skin Twin Series. Each day, she recreated one of Rachel's identities. Day 1, Roxanne, red silk dress, smirk, eye contact challenge. Day 2, Sierra, oversized sunglasses, cheek tape, whispering. Day 3, Alessa, minimal makeup, symmetrical hair part, detached tone. She gained 250,000 followers in 3 days. On day 5, she posted a final video. "I think I finally see her. She's inside now. I'm just a shell." Amber was reported missing 36 hours later. Her phone was found near a pier in Clearwater, screen cracked, still playing a loop of her own face, smiling in reverse, distorted through a mirror filter. Her body was never recovered. Rachel hadn't left her cell, but her reflection had, and it was learning to walk without her. Vasquez, now retired, sat alone one night flipping through old files. She came across a photo from the initial investigation. Rachel at the nightclub, her face captured in a mirror behind Damon Green. Only this time, Vasquez saw something she hadn't noticed before. There were 2 reflections. One was Rachel, staring forward. The other, slightly behind her, was smiling. Too wide, too unnatural, and it didn't belong to anyone in the room. She drove to the hospital at 2 a.m., demanding access. They refused. She returned with a federal order the next morning. But when they escorted her down to room 311, they found the door wide open, the cell empty. On the wall, etched in blood, the mirror broke. Now I'm the glass. Across town, a young woman checked into a boutique hotel under the name Roxanne. She tipped generously, wore red lipstick, smiled at herself in the elevator mirror. And when the receptionist asked if she was visiting for business or pleasure, she simply replied, "Reinvention." 8-year-old Lily Monroe stood alone in the mirrored dance studio of the Midtown School of Ballet, her tiny ballet slippers squeaking softly as she turned on one foot, arms in first position. The class had ended 20 minutes ago, but she didn't want to leave. She was staring at herself, not out of vanity, but because something felt wrong. Her mother, Michelle, stood outside the studio, chatting with another parent. She glanced at Lily and smiled, the way tired mothers do, half present, half exhausted. Inside, Lily tilted her head. So did her reflection. But then, just for a blink, the reflection smiled a beat too soon. Lily's eyes widened. She took a cautious step forward until her nose was almost touching the mirror. Then she whispered, "Are you Roxanne or Rachel?" The mirror didn't respond. Not with words, but with a shiver, a flicker in the light, a breath on glass. Lily blinked, and in the mirror, her reflection didn't. Outside, Michelle turned to check on her daughter again and paused. Lily was standing still, her hands pressed flat against the glass, eyes wide, mouth moving but no sound coming out, just mouthing something over and over. Michelle rushed in. "Sweetheart." Lily turned slowly, her expression blank. Too calm. "I'm okay now," she said. But something in her voice wasn't Lily. It was too even, too rehearsed. Michelle forced a smile. "We need to go, baby. Your teacher's locking up." Lily nodded, picked up her bag, walked quietly to the door. But just before she left the room, she turned back, one last time, and looked at the mirror. And this time, her reflection didn't follow. It stayed behind, staring, smiling, too wide,